back to Miss Cindy's Kitchen. We're going to show you how to make sweet potato biscuits. And it's a recipe I discovered a few weeks ago, and I honestly fell in love with it. It called for fresh sweet potatoes that you cook down. However, I happen to have canned sweet potatoes on hand. So it calls for 2 cups of mashed sweet potatoes. So I measured those out, and it's roughly a can and a half if you have canned yams that are about a 15 ouncer. And basically it says cut yams, but in parentheses it says sweet potatoes. So I guess that answers the age-old question. Are yams and sweet potatoes the same thing? According to this can, they are. So, anyway, and then for the dough, we're going to have 1 1/4 cups of flour, which I have already measured out. And then we have 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, which I have out from something I made earlier. So whenever you measure brown sugar, you compress it to pack it in.
And just out of curiosity, why do you compress brown sugar?
Because that's what the standard is for brown sugar.
Okay.
And it's more of a fluffy sugar rather than a solid pack like white sugar is. And then we need a tablespoon of baking powder. So I'm going to measure that out. Going to level it off. So it's a tablespoon of baking powder. And it needs a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And again, I keep my baking soda in a canister. It's a recycled Parmesan canister because they come in handy. Because I use baking soda for cooking as well as for cleaning, and the shaker top comes in handy for that. So we've got that. And then let me mix this up with a fork. I think we need some WD-40 on the drawer rails. So I'm going to mix this all together. And this is a surprisingly delicious biscuit. It's more of a sweet biscuit, but it pairs great with casseroles, chicken, any type of meat dish. It's really good. And also leftover for breakfast is quite tasty too.
Yeah, I can attest to that. That is actually good.
So we're going to take a 1/2 stick of butter. And just cut that in half. Drop that in there, and this is softened overnight. And I have to put the butter in the cabinet overnight, or else our 4-legged toddler of a dog will eat butter. I mean, butter is really tasty, but she's obsessed. Alright. Whenever you make biscuits or pastry dough, you want to blend the butter into the flour mixture with a pastry blender until it's the consistency of peas or coarse sand. So, just kind of got to get the butter off the pastry blender. So you'll see it's gradually coming together where it's resembling coarse crumbs. And the butter will get down to pea-sized crumbs. Mix it up a little bit more. Alright, now we're going to mash our sweet potatoes. And when you drain them, try to get out most of the cooking liquid or the syrup if you're using canned. Otherwise, it might make your dough a little wet.
Oh, okay.
And this countertop's loose. One of these days. Just gonna mash it up. I made these the other night and they were gone by the next night because we had them with dinner and throughout the next day.
Well, they were so good.
Yes, they are very good. Alright. Okay. Now, we're going to mix the two together. And I think for the sake of convenience, I'm going to put the flour into the sweet potato mixture. because it's a bigger bowl. This dough blender works great. And we've had people ask where it came from. It was in the cake aisle at Michael's, and it's made by Wilton, the cake accessories company. And then it also calls for 2 to 4 tablespoons of milk, added 1 tablespoon at a time. And because the weather is moist, we probably don't need too much moisture in the batter. Because if this is too wet, it's going to be a sticky mess to roll out. So I'm going to err on the lighter side of the milk addition. So I added maybe a tablespoon and a half of milk. Now the next thing you're going to do, I'm going to use a cutting board for this, which is why I like the large cutting boards. And again, with the repurposed Parmesan canister, I put flour in this because it's great for dusting surfaces. Like when you're making biscuits or cookies, you need some flour.
Huh.
So this way it won't stick to the board. Alright. I can already tell the dough's going to be a wee bit sticky because we are at 95 or 94% humidity because it has been raining and raining and raining here. I think we're having a monsoon because we live in the desert.
Well, at one point I was looking for an ark, so.
Yeah. And our local Chick-fil-A had an image of their cow riding a boat in a puddle, which pretty much describes the weather pretty well.
Yeah.
Alright, and then a little bit more flour on the top of the dough. And this is better than it was the other day when I made it. So I put too much milk in it the last time. So, as you can see, you're just going to roll this out with a little bit of flour. And then I'm going to blend in some flour. And this is a dough lifter that works great for mixing dough. When you cook as much as I do, you have a lot of cooking tools on hand.
A dough lifter. I've never heard it called a dough lifter.
And it's great for cutting dough, see? And for blending. And we also use them for cutting up bar cookies. Because sometimes the bar cookies, it's just easier to do that. So, now I'm going to spread this out a bit. And I'm going to use a, here, I'll put that in the sink.
Okay.
I'm going to use a 2.5 inch cutter.
I want to make sure the other camera will be able to see what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'll put this out of the way so we can clear the playing field, as I like to say. So, roll the dough out to about 1/2 inch. And then we're going to cut it with this biscuit cutter. And I like the little crinkle side. It gives it a little bit more variety. And I think Dahlia likes the smell of the sweet potatoes. Oh. Actually, the cat's stuck in the cabinet. Our cat is rather fat and she likes to hang out in the cabinet. And every now and then she gets stuck. Because heaven forbid I have bowls and other various containers in there and she can't get her little fat bot around them. And Dahlia hears her in distress and wants to help, so she fusses at us to help bail her out. Alright, so now we're going to put the biscuits on a parchment lined baking sheet. Parchment helps keep it from sticking. Alright.
Now, why a 1/2 inch, just out of curiosity?
Because any more than that would be too thin. That one looks a little weird, so I'm going to re-roll that. And 1 inch is too thick, so a 1/2 inch seems to be a good medium measure for that. And before I forget, let me set the oven to 450 degrees. So if you live in an area where the humidity is pretty intense, you need less milk with the batter. So, and if you're having rain in the desert like we are here, go with the less butter. I mean, less butter, less milk.
Less milk.
Less milk.
Of course, on those days when it's 100 degrees outside, you probably need.
Yeah, it just depends. If your dough is too wet, add more flour. If it's too dry, add more milk. It basically, you just adjust it for whatever conditions you're working with. Because I know in the south it can be pretty darn humid. So you might need to use more flour to make your dough less sticky. So let's see if we can get one more out of this.
Yeah, I noticed you just took what? You just took your dough like you did there and you just rolled it back up and...
Yep. You don't want to roll it too many times because if you roll it too many times it can get a little tough, but it's all good. So I'm going to get one more out of this and then I can just make a large biscuit to finish that off. Of course, actually, this probably would fit 2. So let's just do one more. And then we can just cook a random lump of dough. So that's that. And then you could take what you have left, just roll it in your hands, and shape it into a round semblance of a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. These don't take up too much room on the cookie sheet, but so that's that. Now these are going to bake for about 15 minutes. And it's because they're very dense, which is why they need the higher temperature that helps them rise. So let's go ahead and put them in the oven. All right.
All right.
Oh, yeah, I got a very goopy hand. So, bake them in the oven. All right. And it's going to be about 15 minutes. We'll let you know the exact amount of time to bake it. So in the meantime, please like and subscribe and share to your friends and give us your feedback, and we'll bring you back when the biscuits are done. All right. So the biscuits have cooked for about 18 minutes at 450 degrees.
Wow.
I think
oh my gosh.
I think because they're a very dense biscuit, it needs the higher temperature for longer. So let me close the oven. And one other tip I read about biscuits is when you're cutting them out, resist the urge to twist your cutter because that will kind of seal the edges and prevent them from rising.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you just want to push them down and pop them back up?
Yeah, and if your dough is a good consistency, you can just push the cutter down, and then it's easier to cut out several and then lift the dough off and then re-roll it for more biscuits.
Wow.
So, let's take a look. These biscuits are absolutely delicious. I made them on a whim one time because I always have canned sweet potatoes. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the bomb. And so, let's see if we can just open it up a little bit. And it's kind of doughy on the inside, but it is absolutely delicious. With just a little spot of butter on a hot biscuit. You can put some butter on it, and it's also good with cinnamon sugar. And again, it only has 1.25 cups of flour in it, so it's not really heavy on the carbs. It's more heavy on the vegetable carbs rather than the refined flour. So, but anyway, I'll hold the camera and you can give it a taste.
Okay.
Just be mindful that it's a wee bit hot.
It's a wee bit hot?
Yes. It's a wee bit hot.
It's a wee bit hot.
Yes. A fresh, hot sweet potato biscuit.
Oh,
what do you
so
think?
Good. It's so good.
It's surprisingly delicious.
It is.
And it's relatively simple to make as far as the ingredients.
Oh, bar.
Oh yeah. Hot and fresh from the oven.
Yeah.
All right. So, thank you again for joining us at Miss Cindy's Kitchen. So make sure you like and subscribe and share these videos to your friends and give me your feedback, and do try the recipes and let me know what you think, and join us again soon.
Thank you for watching Miss Cindy's Kitchen. To get more recipes like this one, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications when new videos are uploaded. Share it out to your friends, family, neighbors, and leave us a comment to let us know how this recipe worked for you. And don't forget to hit that like button. Again, thank you for watching Miss Cindy's Kitchen.